Hi everyone and welcome to your daily horoscope. Today we have a very active and very mixed sky where the energies are very dual in nature, giving us the chance and the opportunity to decide for ourselves how we would like to use them. But of course, it's not going to be as easy for everyone because this is the moment when the square, the conversation of tension between Neptune and the Sun in the sign of Gemini, is exact. And basically, this means that information is out there. You know, exactly as the slogan of the X-Files was, the truth is out there, and it actually is. Just that we have to become aware and stand from a place of maximum awareness that the truth, it doesn't matter which way, shape or form, it is always going to be subjective, and it is always going to be rather dual because it isn't dished out in a very clear, very straightforward manner, but rather it's mixed with illusions, with half-truths, with lies, with certain scientific explanations, which of course meld together with a spiritual or philosophical point of view. And this is the kind of mixed energy bomb that is out there, and it is reaching us regardless of what we do, regardless of what we don't do. This is where it's playing out on the world stage, and there's nothing we can do to stop that. And also, this is the moment when Mars and Neptune are very, very close to each other. Their conjunction perfects just in a couple of days, and then we have an enraged, a very powerful, fiery, willful Neptune, and that is not always the very best energy. But as I said earlier, it highly depends on how we use it. Now first I'm going to start with the negative expression of this energy, because I think that this is the predominant feeling that everyone is having right now, where you know that Mars and Neptune in the sign of Pisces bring up to the surface all our traumas, all our repressed and hidden emotions, our illusions, our misaligned beliefs. So as I said earlier, it is like an amalgam of truth and illusion, and this is where we have to sort it out, we have to filter it, we have to use the empowerment of Mars to seek the truth, but at the same time, standing from a place of knowing that any shape and form of the truth is still highly subjective, because that is the nature of the reality and the world that we live in. Reality is just a question of perception, so this is also the blessing of free will. So those of us who are expecting the truth being dished out or discovered or whatever in a very ideal, clear, objective manner, well, they are falling into a Neptunian trap, because the truth is not always susceptible to pure objectivity. So everything has a totally different side as well, and this is the kind of energy which invites us to just accept the opinion, the perceptions, the perspective of other people and stop fighting them. Of course, fighting them is a valid option, it's no problem, but it will just take away the empowerment of Mars, where we use it in an assertive way and not in a way which empowers us personally the most. This doesn't mean that we have to stay silent. This doesn't mean that our hands are tied whatsoever, but it just means that we have to know what we're fighting for, and that, you know, being assertive or making our own versions of the truth aggressive or forcing it down the throat of other people's, well, ultimately that is not getting us anywhere, because when philosophies and truths clash, it shouldn't be a bloodbath, it should just represent a certain equilibrium where the opposing parties have to accept all those things that they cannot change in the other person, and that has to be the objective truth, what we can change and what we cannot change. But this is just the world stage where it's getting violent, where it is getting really, really heavy, of course. But individually, this is a very depressive vibe. This is where we feel trapped in every kind of way in our own lives. This is where we don't have a past, basically, because of our past normality is gone, is absolutely gone in physical reality. So that just leaves us with memories, with emotions. There is no way we can go back, but our present is also highly uncertain, and the future shouldn't even be mentioned because that is a big question mark. That is a big enigma, and not just in a very rational kind of way, not just in a way of our basic human foresight, but even spiritually, even karmically. No one actually knows we're heading towards. All we know that is the divine mystery unfolding, but how or when exactly or in which way we just don't know. So that kind of leaves us in a very Neptunian, emotional, in a very timeless state where we just don't know where to navigate towards, as in past, present, or future. But since we don't even hold the truth, for some people this can trigger a massive depression because they feel so very stuck and they just cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel. How can they see when every light at the end of the tunnel is more or less an illusion right now? It is just a spark of hope where it doesn't actually make sense because we don't know. Our rational minds cannot have a grasp on the future because there's so many elements missing. So this is the energy of depression, self-victimization. This is the energy of martyr from a karmic perspective. So, a lot of people have this tendency to sacrifice themselves for a greater good. The fearless spiritual warrior who doesn't really care about anything that happens to them as long as they stand up for their principles. But this is also a very unhealthy way of expression of this energy, because we shouldn't really be living in a day and age when spiritual warriors should do all those acts of self-sacrifice and anything like that. And if they choose to do it, well, it is like fighting the windmills, because excessive self-sacrifice and just standing up for a principle is not the best idea right now, because all of this is so very changeable and subjective. We're not living in an age where crusaders are much needed in the world, but rather we are living in an age of information where, standing up for a very rigid principle is not actually advised, because that is also the thing of the past. The holy people, the martyrs, the figure of Christ, all the saints in Christianity, they were martyrs enough, they sacrificed enough, so that karmic pattern was already played out. And yes, they made progress, it's undeniable, but has it got the world that far? Has it really taught the lesson? No, it hasn't. So this is where we have to try something totally new. So going to war and fighting and just rigidly, obsessively protecting a principle is not a very advised thing to do right now. And the same thing goes if this depressive vibe, if this Neptunian melancholy has nothing to do with the world stage, it is just you and your life and your inner world. Well, the same principle is also true, because is it that very important right now for us to cling on to the depression? Because when we are in a state of depression, well, that means that we don't want to accept something in our lives, or we don't want to release a desire, a pain, a memory, an emotional attachment, a person. We don't want to accept something in our lives. And is it that useful right now for us to be so rigid? Is it that useful for us to cling on to the depression and just try to own it obsessively, try to resolve it, try to beat ourselves into submission? Neptune squaring the sun. The sun is our self, sense of self, our identity, our self-expression. This is where everyone is pretty much in the same boat. Mercury in the sign of Cancer. All of us are more or less in the same situation, especially karmically. So this is the moment when, comparing yourself to another in the way that no one's that much better off, especially emotionally or karmically or spiritually, than ourselves. This just gives us the courage and the comfort needed to just break the depressive bubble, to release everything that is causing our depression. And of course, this doesn't mean that we have to be cheerful and positive and optimistic, but we can be realistic or realistically ignorant if that is what it takes. But Pisces is a sign which has so much to do with self-sacrifice and nurture and, the greater good of others over our own. So, this is the moment when the survival mentality and the survival instincts are not as powerful as at any other moment. But self-care and nurture and the ability to close our emotional wounds is also highlighted, and this is exactly what should be focusing on, because if we manage to break our own depressive bubbles, then we can help other people do the same the way we did it. And of course, this is where we get to the positive expression of this energy, because this is a very, very magical and artistic energy, which is extremely intense, and it really needs us to, swim against the tide to tap into it, to tap into the potential magic of an activated, very powerful Neptune. And this is a big blessing in itself, because what a rare opportunity we have to have this energy in our lives, because Neptune only traverses its home sign once 200 years. So it isn't like everyone is going to be living this at one certain moment in their lifetimes. No, this is a very unique moment that is gifted to us, all of us who are alive in this present moment. And this is where we really have to be wise enough to tap into this, especially when Neptune forms a sextile, a celestial conversation of harmony with Pluto in the sign of Capricorn. And this is the power of dreaming big, manifestations, the power that you have over your faith, over your karma, over your life and destiny, and however your physical life, Capricorn, has to play out your life path, your soul mission. You have power over that. It is not set in stone. The information of what you need to accomplish with it is maybe set in stone one way or another, depending on your personal chart, but not the way you accomplish it, not when you accomplish it, not how you accomplish it. That is all adaptable, especially if that is your express will. So this is the power of magic. This is the power of dreams, of wishes. It's like having a genie of the bottle, and this is a long-term aspect, which is going to get more intense as Jupiter gets even closer to Pluto. And then both of those planets, Pluto and Jupiter, are going to be sextiling together in Neptune. And also Mars, the planet of action, the power of our wills, the singularity of our desires, is also forming the same kind of conversation with Pluto. Its higher octave, its greater, more cosmic, more karmic representation. So that is also a great energy of empowerment, where we can use our spirituality, the raw power of our beliefs, of what we choose to believe, in order to transform, transmute, alchemize our lives, our perceptions, our karma, even Pisces, the energy of karmic closures. And this is where, for very, very many people, closures are happening right now. But the closures, first of all, are felt inside of us. And this doesn't need to have a reason or an explanation. This is where you just wake up one day and just know that a certain chapter of your life, maybe your career, maybe your job, maybe your hobby, maybe your relationship, maybe the person who you thought you were just ends there and then inside of you, and that represents that fate will have to reflect whatever went on inside of you in your physical life. So you're pulling to yourself powerful manifestations, because Mars is all about action, regardless if it's spiritual one, physical one, inner one, or even if it has to do with the chemistry of your body, Pisces, the immune system, the blood chemistry. This is a very powerful fated moment, and at the same time we have a quincunx, a minor astrological aspect, starting today, where Pluto speaks in this manner with the Sun in Gemini. So this is the power of alchemy, this is the power of change, information, affirmations, speech, what we put out in the universe, the light of our consciousness and the power of our thought can shape and mold physical reality. And today it can be a day of big surprises, when whatever we affirm or wish can just all of a sudden enter our spheres of awareness, but in not a very direct manner, because quincunx is surprise, it is delight, it is a little bit of confusion, but it still gets the job done, especially if it's a communication, a letter, or something that enters our sphere of awareness from others. And of course, on the world stage, this can also be like a big shocking news or fake news about someone very influential reaching us and triggering a feeling or an emotional response. But as I say, this can also be fake news. But what is guaranteed, that it's going to trigger an emotional response, and it might have to do with something not so positive or something shocking happening to a highly influential person on the world stage, or any kind of conspiracy or fake news. Now also, when Mars meets Neptune in this kind of manner, it can also represent the power of water, physical water, oceans, floods, tsunamis, the destructive force of water. It can also manifest in various countries, especially on sea, like a tsunami or a naval conflict, a naval disaster, floods, heavy rain. But at the same time, it can also have an ethereal element, which is basically spiritual warfare, where our contradicting principles and desires, understand this in a very, very symbolic way. The spells that we cast, even without realizing, are clashing with one another, and this doesn't even have to be direct or known, or we don't even have to be aware of this. It is just something that is happening. This is where the spirit that is us, who we truly are from a divine perspective, is actually fighting for our own causes, for our own purposes, and there's only a very minor influence that we have over this, because when we dream big, we don't know that that is also like setting intentions, placing something into the universe. And if we dream big for the world and not that much for our own personal needs, well, that is already an influence that we place on the world. And if many people dream about the same thing, it can very quickly enter reality, especially when we have such an powerful activated Neptune in the sky. Well, thank you so much for listening. Please remember, if this conversation of melancholy and depressive vibes of Neptune and the Sun is really, really heavy and it's getting to you, know that there's always help out there, because this is also the energy of compassion and reaching out to other people and them being there for you. So there's always help or listeners out there. And of course, it is also worth mentioning that you can use this energy, because even depression, even melancholy is energy. It is still consuming you. It is still very powerful, as in it has to do with the electromagnetic frequency of your brain. So it is raw energy and power, and you can use it to do anything else with it. Art, magic, manifestation, healing yourself, closing and releasing the past, anything like this goes. So it is really up to you what you do with this power. Thank you again. Until next time. Bye for now.